Hello and welcome. Light Leaders Lounge, episode 1. Here we are. So, my vision for this podcast really is quite simple. It's to bring to the arena amazing conversations. Over the years, I've had such amazing conversations with a lot of the women that I have met, colleagues, friends, clients, other healers, light workers, oracles, mystics, spiritual entrepreneurs. And so often we've had these conversations where at the end of it, we would say something to the effect of, this should have been a podcast. Like, I wish this had been recorded. And so I really wanted to just create a space where we can just have these conversations. And so this is the beginning. And thank you for being here. So, this first episode with Edie, we ended up having a plethora of challenges with tech and things like that, which, you know, it is par for the course sometimes. And we finally did record in 2 different segments. So, at the end of this recording, you'll hear it just kind of ends because my internet dropped out. I disappeared. I ended up rejoining, and then everything was really choppy and awkward. So we just ended up scrapping that end of the conversation and recording a part 2, which is really epic. So we have 2 parts to this amazing conversation, and it was really, it was really something. I'm so appreciative to have Edie as my guest, and you can check her out on Instagram. We will put things in the show notes as one does, and all of that. And so, without further ado, we will get into it. Here we go. Hello, hello, welcome, Edie. You are officially welcomed to
Thank you.
Light Leaders Lounge. I'm so happy that you're here. And this has been sort of like percolating in the
Mhm.
fields for quite some time. So I'm so just grateful and blessed to have you here and excited to see what sort of magic we weave here together today, because we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about soul mission, purpose, passion in your work, purpose in your work, and kind of shine a light on your gifts and specifically what makes you you. And then in the collective, what are we weaving? Like, what are we co creating? What is the evolution of who we are, and how is it bringing new light to the world, truth to the world, and actually having a tangible effect? So, not just kind of talking about esoteric concepts, but like, really, like, how is the world affected by who we are and what we do? And
Yes.
all of that good stuff. So, without further ado, Edie, I would love to hear, who are you? Who is this magical woman sitting in front of me? And what is your soul mission? What is the thing that you came here to do? That's what I would love to hear.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Tara. Yes, it's been a journey for us to finally get on here. We've had things come up, but it's all in perfect timing because I feel like it's just going to be such a great conversation today. So I am Edie, and I'll start maybe with my mission or my vision and work my way into the rest of it. But my overarching vision, I believe, why I'm here on this earth is to bring heaven to earth through the liberated voice of the feminine. And what that looks like for me is empowering healing businesses, healers, coaches, guides to create client journeys that are so elegant they sell themselves. And those two might seem dissimilar, but the bridge for me is that on several different sides. One, the world so desperately needs healers, well resourced, and serving as many people as possible. We're seeing more and more people. Um, curious about spirituality, curious about the deeper parts of themselves, seeing what the world has for them and not loving it, seeing all the destruction and death and hungry for more. And that's exactly what healers do. I know I'm preaching to the choir right now, right? And so, just like, decades ago, therapists, it was really looked down upon going to therapy. And in the Western world, we've come a long way. I believe in the next few decades, it's going to be similar with Reiki and energy healing, quantum clearing. They're going to become ubiquitous. And so, and I think that for many women, unlocking their voice and being liberated comes through this healing work. And so, the more healers there are, there's more options, more access for women to get the healing they need. And on the flip side, a lot of healers are women. I mean, if you look generationally and through the history of humanity, who have been often the bridges between the unseen and the seen, the ones who literally have a portal to life in them, right? Whether they have kids or not, or have that ability, it's been women. And so I think there is a unique medicine and magic that is really bubbling again. And we're reclaiming, we're healing our witch wounds. We are, clearing all these past lives, and we're standing boldly and saying, I'm here to be of service. And there is a business aspect that if people want to make money from that. And so what I do is support them in that in a way that honors their nervous system, their mission, the nervous system and mission of those that they're serving. And it's just like the most, I'm biased, but the most beautiful blend of everything that I love, the mysticism, the people who are changing this world, and the business aspect. So that is what I do currently. How I got here, I am the daughter of two immigrants from Ghana, and so that plays into my story heavily of navigating narratives around steadiness and just putting your head down, getting a good job, engineer, doctor, lawyer, and walking that path. And me not doing that, though I am an engineer by degree, veering from that path, that being a big part of my journey and healing and stepping into my own party and my own voice and my own liberation. But as I mentioned, I'm also an engineer by degree. I picked civil engineering, which is the most people oriented engineering, I feel like, of all of them. My soul was calling for that, even in the midst of that. And since then, I've been a CEO, COO. I've started up companies. I've helped others in their own businesses as an employee, as a consultant. In 2022, made the leap to open my own doors, and it's since been a journey of refining what I do, owning who I serve, because I've been running away from the healing community for a while because there was narratives and beliefs within myself about whether they have the appreciation or ability to pay, for what I do. But I recognize that again, those are just narratives, and so here I am, fully and joyfully owning that I am the premier advisory and consultancy for healers who are desirous of making soulful bank.
Mm, I love that so much. It's like everything you're saying, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. It's just like the need for what you do and specifically your own true essence, because I think so much of what we do, it's not just what we do, it's the flavor of your unique, it's like the soul brand, right? It's like
Yeah,
who you are. You're holding keys for specific people to work with you. And they could meet somebody else who technically does the same things that you do, but
right.
you're the person for them and they're the person for you. And that soulmate client idea, it's, I think, spoken a lot of in these spiritual communities. And there can be kind of some false fields to that in some ways of like only looking for the perfect client or the clients that are easy or, things like that.
Mhm, mhm.
And that's a whole separate topic. But there's really true fields to that of like, we are soul encoded to interact with each other in specific ways. And each one of us holds a piece of this beautiful puzzle that really, like, I'm envisioning a massive puzzle that, is laid out on this grand table where we're all
Mhm.
placing pieces of it. And it feels a lot like the golden tapestry of like, what are we weaving together, right?
Yeah, yeah. I
That's
love that. I love
yeah,
mhm.
it feels so beautiful. And speaking to, your background of the immigrant experience, I've experienced a lot of that myself too, with my parents being from Ireland and living in Ireland until I was 13 and then coming here. it was really drilled into me that life wasn't about finding happiness, it was survival. And it was, okay, we're in America, we have opportunities that we didn't have in Ireland, and you have to work hard and you can make anything of your life. Like there was this very
Mhm.
much like the American dream, aspect to it, but it wasn't about like feeling comfortable or having a job that, fulfilled your your soul desires at all. It was just like do what you got to do because they came from hardship, right? So, can you talk a little bit about like what you've needed to do in the dismantling of some of that programming to come back to sort of embracing the intuitive, the soul aspect of who you are and what you do in your work?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a heavy burden that you inherit. And also, I mean, like I'm so deeply grateful for my parents and what they did, hopefully that goes without saying, but I will say it. But there is also this background chatter of, we're the ones that made it. So my parents are from Ghana, West Africa, which is a third world country. I actually just went recently. It's a beautiful country. There's a lot of wealth, but also a lot of poverty. The disparities are stark. And so I found myself having this guilt. It almost felt like survivor's guilt, where like, how dare I desire more than like, how dare I desire good money and like orgasmic business. Like, how dare I desire it to feel amazing and make good money? Like, if anything, maybe it can feel good, but I don't get the money. Where when there's people who don't have access to clean water. Um, so I mean, it's years and there's still layers that come up from time to time, and I'm sure that will continue to. And there is an element of that edge that I don't want to ever completely go away. I always do want to have in the back of my mind people who don't have access to clean water, people who don't have access to certain resources, because that motivates me to do what I do and have the resources to support those people. But so, what this has looked like for me, I think, is coming to the root of that shame and facing it head on, looking it in the eye and having that conversation with it and seeing what is it saying at its core um, about me? What is it saying about the world? And so often I feel like once I've given it voice to say, well, if I make this money or if I strike out on my own, if I'm too happy, I'm leaving these people behind or I'm becoming a frivolous American. Like there was a lot of judgment in my family around Americans. And I'm like, I'm an American. I was born here. Like the judgments that were being projected outward were also coming back to stick on me, like hearing my parents talk about it. And so I think like getting into dialogue with those narratives. And I mean, the energy work, the quantum work, right? Again, that's why it's so powerful because some of the stuff is so encoded and it's so generational. For me, there's been a lot of struggle in my matrilineal line, and a lot of wrongful taking of gold and resources and stuff. And so I had to do a lot of like past life regression and going back and rewriting those narratives. And I think honestly around the whole immigrant thing, um, the energy work has been front and center and because it's gone to places that I could not touch. There's certain things in our life where we can kind of cerebrally navigate it. But that one was just so encoded that yeah, the energy work and the clearing and the deliverance, all of that was so I think the biggest thing for me personally.
Yeah. Yeah, we carry so much in our body, in our cells, in our DNA. It's fascinating, really, especially when you do some energy healing and all of a sudden something changes in your physical world where you're like, whoa,
Mm,
I can actually just see, because so much of it feels intangible. But yeah, the ancestral it's kind of like this untapped well of depth that we can move through depending on how much is ours to do, right? Like, I think sometimes it can feel like there's just endless healing to be
yeah.
done. And I think there could be, right? Like, we're talking about lifetimes upon lifetimes upon lifetimes of trauma and wounding and lineage, bloodline curses, like all sorts of stuff. And I know I've worked on a lot of this stuff just kind of naturally. It arises, and I'm like, oh, here we go again, But we're doing it, like, that's part of what we're here to do, is doing that background work. And I think that that's a big reason why in this, idea of the new earth, the golden tapestry, the new patterning of how we are weaving our work in our world, it has to be that there's space to also do this unseen realm work where, yeah, we need time and space. We're not meant to be working 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
Mhm.
Like, we have to have more flow, more room, more space. Now, when I hear you talking about everything that you do in your work, it feels like you have a really healthy masculine architecture of
Mhm.
structure systems, which
Yeah.
I think is so needed because I know from my own journey and so many clients that I've worked with and colleagues and friends, uh, we struggle with that as feminine, intuitive beings. We kind of just want to talk to God all day. Like, you know, we can get lost in the ethereal realms and
Yeah.
the feeling of I don't fit in on this earth. I'm an
Mhm.
alien. I don't belong here. I feel like nobody understands me. And how do I even exist in this world and have like an actual business, which feels so, it can feel plugged into the false matrix and all of that. Right. So can you talk a little bit about anything that comes to mind with like that theme of what are we moving out of and how do we pair, who we are as mystics, basically,
Mhm.
with the practicality of the world as we know it today, where, yes, we do actually have to have a business and we do have to make money. Like, that's just
Right.
reality.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I would I would say first and foremost that we're on the cusp of a revolution. And so it is particularly painful right now because I think for a lot of mystics you can sense what it could be like. And in spirit you're there. You're, touring the world, being an advisor to all these different leaders, and being paid generously. Like you have your patrons, right? Like you can feel what that would be like, but the world is not matching up yet, and so that can be particularly painful. I do believe again even a couple decades of work that we're doing now and what we're sowing we're gonna be reaping that in a way that feels unattainable right now. So I do want to name that and say that if you're feeling that tension, it's not indefinite. It's particularly strong, and you were born for such a time as this to help usher that in. Um, and I would say that what comes to mind immediately is that there is a practicality to plugging into like the golden tapestry, which is what I call the opposite of the matrix, right? The matrix is the extractive structures. I think and that's why I love the work I do is because there is a spiritual element of it, right? Of recognizing and internally setting your intentions against extractive practices, against on an etheric level, not contributing your energy to this. But it's going to be a practical revolution. It's going to be a revolution of saying, I don't use scarcity marketing tactics and I don't give money to coaches and advisors and whoever who use them. Um, it is a tangible practice of, maybe I don't work with this tech company anymore. I've mentioned that for me, Google. I just hate Google and what they stand for and what they're doing to the world. There's still some things I can't get away from YouTube, but I'm giving less of my intention and less of my money to that company. Not saying everybody needs to, but that's just an example. And so I think that it can be hard when we're trying to still only pull the lever in the spiritual realm, but no, you have power in the physical realm, and that can you can begin crafting around you an ecosystem that feels more like the golden tapestry than the matrix. And just as we're talking about this and we're hungry for that, there's other people who will listen and feel that, and you can find a brand designer who is hungry for that, and you guys can plug into the golden tapestry together, and you can find a quantum advisor, a leadership advisor like Tara, and plug into that. And so even if the world at large is not where we want it to be, we can create that microcosm. And that is in the tangible choices. That's in how are you setting up your business? You're saying that you're against the matrix, but like, what is, here, like, I'm trying to think of some really tangible examples. Like, have you given a thought to like the words you use and being trauma informed? Are you considering the experiences of other people in the work that you do? Because this is something a little controversial, but I'm gonna do it. We talk about the matrix in nebulous terms, but I think that there is a spiritual aspect to it, of course. But then there's also a very systemic and structural thing, like aspect to it. Like sexism is a function of the matrix. It is literally a structural, uh, like there are columns in the matrix that are depleting particular people. Ageism, child abuse. So they're like let's start naming this stuff and let's start recognizing like, okay, are there places in my business where I am subscribing to these isms or ists or whatever that are not golden tapestry? How can I remove these and extract these? And I feel like when we are able to get practical and tangible, and again, that's coming back to the structure and what some people would consider the masculine a bit more, that tangible element, it can bring in the empowerment. It can supercharge the spiritual aspect because now we are changing the 3D, right? We're making the choice, not just the spiritual desire. So hopefully that made sense. But that's what comes to mind immediately when I think about plugging into the golden tapestry and disconnecting from the matrix more and more.
Yes. Yes. I feel that really deeply. And where I have been reflective on these themes for myself is kind of in a like bringing it all back to, and Gene Keys talks about this. I mean, this concept is kind of, it goes into a lot of places, but service to the whole or service to others as opposed to service to self. And so
Mm,
it's kind of like, if that's your intention to look at, okay, where am I being self-serving? Uh, and in doing so, trying to take. And a lot of the time, we have to get really real with ourselves because we may not think of ourselves as being in a self serving patterning. However, the whole world has been built on that. Like the
right.
whole world has been in self serving constructs. And a lot of that is survival, which, people had to do what they had to do, right? But all of that is built into kind of the web of all that is
Hmm.
in this 3D reality. And so, not too long ago, like maybe, I don't know, a year or two ago, I remember realizing I was looking at the gene keys and I can't remember which one it is. It's threaded throughout the whole thing, but it was talking about businesses that basically the new businesses going to where we're going, uh, they will crumble if they're still in that service to self pattern, as opposed
Mm,
to serving the community, serving the whole, serving all of humanity. And at that point, I checked in with the architecture of my own business and I asked, is my business coded in service to self or service to others? And it was service to self. And I was like,
mm,
oh, now, did I see myself in that light? No, but the thing is, um, it's in the subtle realms, right?
yeah,
And it's governing how you work in the world. So I did some work on the architecture of my business and I did some work on my own field of like,
yeah,
okay, where is that stemming from? And it was systemic, so often there's threads of who we are and then ancestral, all of the things. There can be personal things that we have to look at. And then there can be, oh, this is simply programmed in my body,
right.
in my field. It's like, okay, so let's reprogram it because that's what we're able to do.
Yeah,
And then also I do think that there is a certain amount of self-healing that has to occur before we're actually truly ready to serve others. So
yeah,
that doesn't mean we have to be perfectly healed or that we have to, you know, I think that sometimes people feel like, well, am I healed enough yet? Am I still too broken? And that's going to be each and every person on their own unique journey. But I do know for myself a couple of years back, God was showing me to rest and to
Mhm.
just allow for providence to come through in unexpected ways, which really meant leaning on my mother, which was the last thing I wanted to do, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
But my nervous system needed rest. Like, you know, we can talk again in another episode all about, opposition and dark forces and the things that we learn through interfacing with that. And that was a big part of my journey. And I needed to rest. And so I needed time and space and solitude, which God was setting up for me, right? Like the divine action is always moving in your life. But in my mind, I was like, no, I need clients. I gotta work.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I had to look at, why are there no clients coming in even though I'm trying to do the things? It's like, oh, because that wasn't serving them. Like, if clients
Mhm.
had walked through my door at that point, could I have helped them with things? Sure, of
Yeah.
course. Like, it's never going to be kind of 100% negative. However,
Or
I wasn't in the place that I really do need to be able to serve them in a way that isn't just desperation based. Like,
Mhm.
I need some money right now. And it's like,
Right.
you know? So I do think that our personal initiations are going to take us to where we need to be as CEOs of this new paradigm.
Yeah.
And we really have to be, we got to just like knock that pride right off of the pedestal and
Mhm.
get very real, which for me is a continual like, oh, okay. All right. Yep. Uh, that's, that's Thank you. Thank you, God, for the revelation. Um,
Yeah.
but what I see in a lot of the you can see distortions in the spiritual field where you can feel people that are just trying to make money, right? And
Yeah.
they may have pure intentions. Again, like, we're complex beings, but you can sense it when things feel icky, when things feel off, right? And it's kind of like, okay, I know that that person is not completely aligned with their mission, and not in a judgmental way of like, they're a bad person or anything like that, but it's more so of, I need to be able to recognize who I am interfacing with so that we're building the kind of world that we want to go through. So, like you said, like, who am I giving my money to, right? Like I don't shop on Amazon anymore. I haven't in years, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep. Mhm.
it's like I simply can't. Like, I just, and for each person, like, you bring up the Google, and that's something where I've been irritated with everything that I want to log into. You got to use your Google. Like, it's
Right.
all like intertwined. And
Yes.
I got off of Facebook for the same reason. I did not want to have my Facebook login attached to every single thing. So there's a lot
Mhm.
of different facets. And I think for each person, they have to look at, where am I being guided where something doesn't feel quite right? And where am I out of alignment with the truth of who I am as, God's child, basically. Like, what was I put on this earth to do before things got all murky, before things,
Mhm.
you know, distracted and programmed and all the things. And I do think that's a continual process. And I'm not perfect by any
Mm.
means, but I do set my intention every day to only do what's in the divine will. Like, and to be attuned to what isn't, and to do my very best with my human imperfections to try to really be of service as opposed to, what can I get? What can I get? What can I get? And I really believe that when we operate out of truth, we will be rewarded. We're not going to go hungry. Like, you know, there's no fear there of like, well, if you don't play the game in
Mm,
this, you know, matrix world, then gonna get left
yeah,
behind. It's like, no, we're in a transitioning time. So
yeah, big time.
I really feel that. And I think that we are in that like in between phase. And some of my clients, I can see where it's like they're still sort of deep in the transition in the initiatory process in the dismantling and the stripping clean of who they once were. And it's like, oof, this is hard. Like, does it get better? And it's like, it does.
Right.
It does get better. It's not always going to be in the trenches of, you know,
Mhm.
the hard times and the painful things and the who am I, you know,
Yeah, right.
but those things, we have to go through, right? So speaking to that theme of like becoming who you are meant to be,
Mhm.
um, what would you say has been your deepest struggle, your deepest challenge, your deepest initiation? Something
Mm,
where maybe not everybody talks about these things. Like, we
mhm.
know we're not necessarily writing posts about like our hardest moments, but I
Yeah,
do think it's really like valuable to share, whatever you might want to about that.
absolutely. There's 2 that come to mind, and maybe they're linked, um, but I will start with the one that came first, so maybe I'll give 2, we'll see. But self-belief has been a big one, um, and, like, crippling, like, and recent, um, where I've mentioned, I have a resume of things where, uh, the work I do is like a natural byproduct, and somebody else may have, less of a resume, but still do great work and show up confidently and, charge sustainable prices and, um, just magnetize people. But I have struggled, and I'm sure it's shown up in other ways outside of business before I had a business, but I struggled with that self-belief piece. And it's a combination and vortex of things. With that, the immigrant background of, keeping your head down. There's this like not debasement is such a strong word, but there is like almost this sense of like, don't like keep your head down. You don't want to stir the pot, don't want to rock the boat. Um it, Almost a sense of being like borrowed time and space, and then with my religious experiences growing up in a very fundamentalist group and then joining a cult in college, which I didn't know was a cult because I don't think anybody joins a cult knowing it's a cult, that really fragmented me internally. And um it has taken 10 years to do some really intensive work to get to the point where I feel like I see myself more clearly. It's almost like image dysmorphia, like body dysmorphia. It's almost like image dysmorphia. Like have people meet me and be like, "You seem so regal and like you just seem so confident." And I'm like, I feel like I'm just this little like I don't even know child just putzing along. And so that has crippled me in a lot of ways. In business, in the choices I make, and even in the relationships that I have selected. And so that's the second one, initiation wise, is my marriage that has since ended was a extremely draining and toxic one that like sucked the life, sucked the creativity, sucked so much out of me. And I think it was a reflection of that lack of self-belief and that again image dysmorphia where I'm thinking that this is the best I can do, and I'm so grateful that for the woman in my life, for the resources that had like stair stepped me to the point where I was able to recognize that there is more for me. And so I would say those are like the 2 biggest initiations. And on the marriage side, I think that a lot of people, a lot of women especially, don't talk about how impactful it is when you have a partner who is not for you, and how draining that can be, and how really detrimental it can be for you. And my mission, my clarity, my creativity did not accelerate until I was able to recognize that this is no longer working, and has not worked for a while. And the other party was not interested in getting the help that we needed for it to work. And once we separated, there was grief, mostly grief for myself and how long I remained. But there was a lot of processing, a lot of healing. It's still, there's still things that are echoing from that. Um, but what came through was rapid clarity. Like in a year, my life looked so different. The way I showed up in business looked so different. The way I showed up as a parent. And I even met my current partner who is just, like a dream come true. Like, I couldn't even fathom, uh, being with I don't think I've even met a man like him, and I couldn't, fathom being in a relationship with a man who is so caring and supportive of my goals and invests in me and cares for me, in a way that I've never experienced. And so I would say definitely, the image dysmorphia and then the choices, especially in relationships that came from that, have been some of the biggest initiations because, um, we don't talk about it a lot. We don't talk about it enough, but having a, um, partner who is having close relationships that are emotionally draining, emotionally, unsustainable can really derail you from your mission. So yeah, those are my two biggest ones: the image dysmorphia and my draining marriage. And I think they're interlinked. And from those initiations, definitely have a stronger sense of self, a stronger sense of also energetics, honestly, as well. Like navigating things with my ex and the ties and seeing like as my energies returned to me and seeing where it was siphoned, it's been like a crash course in energetics. And I'm super sensitive now to energetic boundaries and exchange and destiny swapping and the energetics of finances. Like there's so much that I'm like, man, we as women need to have more of these conversations. So we're protecting ourselves. So we are we're able to make s- and I'm not, I hate to say better selections because I know my ex flipped a switch when like very different from when we were courting and all was fun and then we got married, you know. But yeah, so I'd say those are my 2 biggest initiations, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful that they didn't take me out because I know some people just experience so much, around these 2 elements where it's just hard to get their footing again, and it's hard to come back to their vision and come back to their joy. And I think about our foremothers, and, they we're so much more duty bound, I think, than the current generation. And I love that for us. I love that for us. We're not martyrs. You know, we're willing to say this is not working, and I don't want to replicate this in my children's life, or you know, and any of the people that I'm caring for or connected to. And so, yeah, that's
So thank you so much for joining us for part one of episode one of Light Leaders Lounge. And part two is even better. So we will catch you in the next episode.